I just know that it was essentially a murder.
Somebody was murdered, and there's a ghost.
I heard that they both haunted.
It's like one of EIU's main attractions.
Question, and no pressure, do you believe in ghosts? This is a question worth asking if you're going to stay at EIU, particularly at Pemberton Hall. There's an old story about the place. Yes, it was the first all-girls dorm built in the state of Illinois. But if that were the end of the story, this would just be a PBS special about old buildings in Charleston. No, from here, the story is more sinister. It's a tale that has spanned decades and has been altered throughout time. This is a story of mystery, maliciousness, and even murder. Residents are said to reside among ghosts a century old. This folk legend has been in the EIU community for years, passed down by generations of students. It is surrounded by believers and skeptics alike. And now, it's time to get to the bottom of things. This is the story of what's really going on with the haunting of Pemberton Hall. Chapter 1. No, word of mouth does not count as a reliable source for this assignment. The thing about folk stories, especially one like this, they are subject not only to the storyteller, but also to time. This potential ghost tale has been told by many storytellers in many different decades. Essentially, it's like playing a years-long game of telephone. Some details will probably become fuzzy, with elements possibly added or subtracted throughout the years. This seemed to be true when talking with students about their thoughts on the haunting of Pemberton Hall. All 4 students I talked to had varying degrees of knowledge on the manor. A history student named Andrew actually had seen articles about the story on the internet and gave a solid recount of the events surrounding the story.
I heard or read that it was a maintenance man that had like snuck into the building, and like whoever it was on like the top floor, like playing piano. He comes in, does his thing, and kills her, and then boogies out of there. And so then I guess she crawled all the way down the stairs and pretty much died in front of like what was the RA's office or whatever, and she found her there that night or the next morning, something like that. And now I think I heard that they both haunt it.
However, Andrew was not the only one here, and even then, his version was somewhat limited. Others, such as a history student named Jackson, an English student named Claire, and a film student named Sharifa, all had some basic knowledge on the tale that they had heard from other students.
I just know that it was essentially a murder, that it was, I believe a girl was murdered because it's a girl's dorm. And then now, allegedly the ghost haunts the premises, as these things tend to do, allegedly.
As they tend to do.
Somebody was murdered, and there's a ghost. I don't know, I've heard some older girls saying that they've seen it, but also it was after some things, so they were not completely sober. I don't know if I trust that, but that's all I know.
It's like one of EIU's main attractions, ironically. Yes, you walk in the library, it's one of the displays that we have in the library that kind of goes on to tell the story of Pemberton Hall and the haunting. Have I read that poster? No. I was eating lunch with some ladies and they were like, "Oh, I'm in Pemberton," and another lady said, "Oh, where that lady got killed, huh?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And they were like, "Oh, Pemberton's haunted." And I was like, "Okay, pass the salt."
There's one key theme with what all of these students have said. They heard their information from somebody else. The details are blurry and not always sufficient. Sure, people may have told someone what they saw after their encounters with the paranormal at Pemberton, But even then, the story could be misconstrued by skeptics or told incorrectly. Because of this, the real story of the haunting of Pemberton Hall is incredibly vague and leaves a lot left to discover. In this series, we're going to begin digging deeper into what allegedly happened or didn't happen at Pemberton. We will examine what people have said, with a grain of salt of course, over the years, and take a look at some people's alleged interactions with the ghost or ghosts. We will explore any potential evidence possible for both sides of this story. We'll also take a look at what people have written and try to separate what's fact and what's fiction with the haunting of Pemberton Hall. In the next episode, we will sit down and hear the consensus story that has been echoed throughout the years in some pretty graphic detail. But before I go, I must ask, who's playing the piano upstairs? I thought the 4th floor was off limits and locked to all visitors. Next week, Chapter 2. Who's playing the piano this late at night?